What is going on, everybody? Welcome back in. This is Hawk Talk on Melrose. Thank you for tuning in. I am Collin with Tyler today. It's been a minute since both of us did an episode together. Last episode, Tyler did a solo episode, his first time ever, which, hey, Tyler, you did a good job, by the way. And then I did one 2 episodes ago. So if you have not listened to those two, I highly suggest you go back and listen to them. But what's going on, man?
What's going on, Collin? Yeah, I agree. It's been a month since we've been on.
Yep.
If you're watching on YouTube, side by side here on the screen, and no, it's good to have you back on. It not as much pressure to perform on your own.
I had a buddy last night that at that concert was like, yeah, I played the last episode and I was not expecting it to be just Tyler because that was obviously your first time ever doing it. He's like, I was just expecting it to be you, if anything. And like, nope, Tyler wanted to do one. And like I said, you did a good job. So we'll probably down the road, kind of ever so often, both of us will maybe do solo episodes ever so often, very short. But once we get into the season, we'll for surely be doing them together all the time. Before we begin, though, I do want to say where you can find Hawk Talk on Melrose. Our preferred platform is YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're also on many different platforms as well: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, CastBox, just to name a few. Our simple ask is that you follow us, subscribe to us, leave a comment, leave a review. It only helps, and we appreciate that greatly. So thank you so much. So on today's episode, the first topic we're going to talk about, Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register had a really good piece the other day talking with Ladell Betts, and they all went up to Green Bay. The offensive coaching staff went up to Green Bay, and he just kind of shared the experience to Chad. And like I said, it was a really good article. So we're going to get into that a little bit. We're going to talk offseason grades. We're going to get into the Kadyn Proctor, a little bit more of that situation. And then we're going to end the show off with a mailbag. So pretty short and sweet today. We're obviously in the middle of the offseason. There's not a whole lot to talk about. So we're kind of finding any little topic to kind of gravitate towards. And we're trying to do our best we can to kind of march on as this offseason goes. But we are getting very, very close to the season. We are 12 weeks away from the first Iowa game. So it's coming very, very quickly. So topic one, Ladell sitting down with Chad and kind of discussing and going over them going up to Green Bay last week. I just thought it was really interesting. I think we have to remember that this happens a lot. Coaching staffs go to different places just to get new ideas, things like that. It's not anything new. But I think for me, like the first thing was that I got out of it was how warmly received Tim Lester was up there. And Ladell shared that and thought it was a kind of a cool thing to see. Because if you think about it, Tim Lester was only up there for a year. It wasn't like he was there for 5 years, 10 years. Like he was there for 1 year. And to see that kind of shows the respect that people have for Tim, I think. And then I think the next one, and this one was the biggest thing that I got out of it. And that was the quote from Ladell Betts that said, just talking about going up there and the reason why it was beneficial. And he said, quote, "We're running the Packers system. We're running the Shanahan system." That's kind of where I want to start at. And I want to hear your thoughts is I think there's 2 things. There's fact. And then there's wishful thinking. I think the fact is 100% fact that we are running a new system. Like our offense is going to be different. I think that is 100% a fact. Kirk Ferentz has said it. Tim Lester has said it. Ladell Betts now has said it. Like it is a fact that we are running a new system. However, and this is where the wishful thinking comes in, just because we're running a new system does not mean that our offense is going to be better. Obviously, the hope is, the wishful thinking is that it is going to be better. You know, if we're running a Shanahan style offense or close to that, like it should be better, but players still have to execute. We still have the same personnel. Like we don't know, like it could be the same old typical offense, although it will be different. So I just kind of want to start off with that I do think there are 2 things. There is a fact that it is a new system. We are running a version of the Shanahan offense. I think it's going to be more Green Bay-ish just because Tim Lester was up there. He's friends with Matt LaFleur. I think it's going to be more of a version of Green Bay. And what they do is they obviously use the tight ends a lot. And really, the Shanahan offense comes down to running the football. And if you think about Green Bay, you know, who did they get this offseason? They got Justin Jacobs. I think that's kind of the version that they want to get to, like the power football, power offense, set up the play action. That's kind of what the Shanahan system is all about, really. And I think that's kind of what I was going to do. So, yes, new system, but once again, not necessarily going to be a good offense just because it's a new system.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to ask you a question and say, you know, obviously from what you're hearing it is a new system, but do you think we have the personnel, the players to execute what
Yep.
Tim wants to do and what he's learned being up in Green Bay, even if it is just for a year? So what are your thoughts, I guess, on that? With what we have now, do you think it's
Yeah,
going to take time to get his guys in there and to execute it? Or do you think, no, going into year one, we can have some success running this?
I think, and this is, I'm kind of taking a step back here. I feel like when people think of like the Shanahan offense, right? You think of like the 49ers, you think of like Sean McVay, you think of like Matt LaFleur, you think of like the success that those guys have with the offense, and you just think of like good offense. And that's where the problem is, because I think when people hear, oh, we're running a version of the Shannon offense, like I think people kind of automatically assume that it's going to be like good because you watch those teams do it, and those are in the league. They have good players. Like you talk, Jordan Love, you're talking, Brock Purdy, you're talking really good players around them. So for Iowa,
Christian
yes.
McCaffrey,
yep, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. It's unbelievable. So yeah, of course it's going to be good when you have the personnel like that. So yeah, for Iowa, that is where it kind of comes down to, like, can this personnel do it? Can Cade McNamara do it? If he gets hurt, can Brendan Sullivan do it? The players around him, can they all work together? Can they execute it? Because that's going to be the biggest thing. And if they can't, they're not really good at it. If it takes time, the offense is still going to struggle. It's still going to be just kind of iffy. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
What I'm really hopeful for, Collin, is when he talks about, like you said, it centers around the run game. It's about how they use the tight ends. Well, those are staples in Iowa's offense going back to forever under Kirk Ferentz that he wants to make sure is a focal point, right? Get the tight ends involved, make sure to establish the run, then play action off of it. So I like that idea. And I think, again, I just land on anything is better than what I've seen in the last how many years. That's just, at the end of the day, like, I can't sit here and, like you said, I can't expect this thing to go look like the 49ers. I'm not doing that to myself. But if we can be marginally better in just certain areas on offense, I think it's already a success.
Yep. The problem these last how many years, like I was thinking, like how many times on first down we would just do like an outside zone run and it would either get like maybe 1 yard, but more times than not, it would be swallowed up and it would be like a 2nd and 12, a 2nd and 13. And with Iowa's offense, with how bad, our route trees are back in the day and, quarterback play, if it's 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, you might as well just bring out Torrey Taylor. You might as well just bring out the punter because we're not going to get a first down at that point. Even when it's like 2nd and 9, because more times than not, then on 2nd and 9, it's more than likely going to be a passing play. And it's an incomplete or it's only a few yards. And then you're looking at 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 7. And it's like, it's pretty much game over. So I think with Tim Lester, like, the thing is, like, you're going to run the football, but you're going to do it in a way with the motions, with different things like that, where it's going to keep the defense guessing a little bit. And the hope is that instead of only getting a yard on first down or getting behind the chains, you get 3 or 4 yards on first down, or hopefully maybe 5 yards, right? And it's 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 6. Or if you don't run, you do a quick passing play, because that's another thing with Shanahan's offense is it's quick passing, quick routes where you get the ball and then the hope is that receiver, that running back turns it into 5, 6, 7, 8 yards, right? So
the other thing I'll do you one better. I mean, how many times have we sat next to each other in a game and you go, well, I know what's coming here on first down or second down after the negative 4 yard run. Like, that's where you hope that Tim isn't as predictable. And that's another big thing. And it shouldn't even be a shock to anyone. I mean, I don't need to come on here and tell you guys that, but it's like, let's just not be as predictable as we have been in the past. That's another thing that I think, will do us some good.
I thought it was interesting. Chad was saying that he was talking to the coaches at the spring game and said that that this spring they had more big runs than the last 4 or 5 years. And I think that kind of goes with this whole thing with like the pre-snap motions, things like that. That's only going to help. I mean, it was like we were our own worst enemy these last how many years when trying to run the football, because it was so predictable, so obvious, and it was like the same play. Now we did start doing more like gap run plays last year, and I think that like helped a lot. It was definitely better, but it was still, once again, it's like it was just predictable. Like defenses knew what was coming, and that it was just so. Another thing too, I think we haven't really talked about this either, is like pre-snap audibles, because I feel like in the past we rarely did it. And when we did, it was an automatic run play. I don't know if you've ever caught on to that, but it seemed like every time we would do it audible, it was always a run play right after it. So it's going to be interesting to see if we start doing more audibles. I know a lot of colleges do that where like they take like one clap and they all look at the sideline because, you're seeing how the defense looks, and then you might change up the play. It seemed like Iowa, even when, there was 9 guys in the box, hey, maybe call an audible here. They have 9 guys in the box. Let's maybe do something else.
Got a one-on-one matchup on the outside or something. Yeah.
No, we would just run into 9 guys and and then we get 2nd and 13, 2nd and 12.
Yeah, I think Brian's just lack of creativity and lack of, I don't even know if it's like the trust in the quarterback. Obviously, Deacon gives you reason not to trust him, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. We didn't give our quarterback a lot of other, like a second option or other things he could do besides, this is the play call. We're going to stick with it. If it's going to be an audible, it's going to be a run, or it's going to be, let's flip the run to the other side. And it's like, it's just so predictable. So it's just, it's very, and it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to do anything off that. So I think that's you're exactly right in that aspect. Got to be able to do more for sure.
And then, well, I guess we'll end it there because we're going to have so many more episodes where we're going to talk about the offense and things like that. We will end it there. I do want to ask you, we're going to get in the next topic here, and that is off-season grades. I'll let you go first. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I'm sure we'll probably be pretty similar. But yeah, floor is yours.
So off-season grades for Iowa football. Just to start off, I'm going to go with an A-. I think some of the pros, obviously, you've kept your entire defense, which is elite as it comes in college football. And that's, really hard to do. I mean, guys with opportunities to go to the NFL, transfer out, make more money, yada, yada, in today's NIL world and in the college football as it is, it's really impressive that I was able to do that. I love that we were able to fill some positional needs on offense with, quarterbacks like Brennan Sullivan, Northwestern transfer, obviously, and the new transfer, Jackson Stratton, Colorado State, which we haven't talked about, but don't know how good he'll be. Obviously, I think he's a younger guy, but just provides more depth at a position where we have not had any in the last how many years, and I love that. Jacob Gill, you've talked about Northwestern wide receiver transfer coming in. Obviously, wide receivers, can't get enough of them. Love that. The cons, though, you do lose a guy like Jacob Bostic to, Texas A&M, which I thought, if he would have, obviously he wasn't healthy ever really in his Iowa career, but if he was able to, I think he could have got some good playing time. And then I think, and you've touched on this really in the last episode when you talked specifically about Jacob Gill. I think a lot of it is we did feel those needs where we had to get some guys to increase the depth at certain positions, especially on offense where we've been very bad. But a lot of the guys are unproven guys, the guys that haven't had a ton of playing time or have really gotten a ton of opportunities to start or anything like that under their belt. They're not the cream of the crop in terms of the top rated players in the transfer portal, but as I'll steal your quote, beggars can't be choosers. We can't complain about, well, we got this guy, but he's not very good. It's like, hey, we gotta make do with what we have. So that's why I'm going A-, just because it's we've got a lot of pieces, just unproven, and we haven't. This is the year one. We don't know what it's all going to look like. So, but I think overall, man, a really successful offseason for sure.
Yeah, I was actually going to go like that as well. I know it's like being similar, and I didn't know if you're going to give it an A-. Like I might say like A-ish. And I feel like people are going to be like, God, what a bunch of homers. Because I think most people are going to just think like, when you think the offseason,
offense,
and you're just thinking of like who we got in the transfer portal. And it's like, it wasn't anything great. And if you're just looking at who we got in the transfer portal, I'd probably like a B-, C+, because it wasn't great. For me, it's like, but you keep a lot of guys that could have left, right? And that was like Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, Quinn Schulte, Luke Lachey, Shamari Harris, Yahweh Black, Deontay Gray. Like they could have all left. Now, would they have all made NFL rosters? A few of them would have. I don't know if the other ones would or not, but still, like they could have all left. And I'm sorry, but those players are better than any transfer that you're going to get. Why? Because, well, number one, they're proven. They're proven. Like they've shown what they've done at Iowa. You never know when you bring in a transfer. It's not always a guarantee that they're going to be good, right? Or they're going to fit into the system. Well, we know like Sebastian Castro, we know Jay Higgins fits into the system. So that's one. And then number two, and I know this sounds really bad, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but getting rid of Deacon Hill, I think was another one. Like it had to happen. Both parties. I'm sorry.
It's a good point.
It had to happen. Like I was getting tired of like, it felt like every storyline was like, oh, if Deacon Hill plays next year, if he steps on the field, I'm done. And it was like that storyline. It was like the 25 points per game last year. It's like, okay, can we just like end this? Let's just move on. Deacon.
Well, not to cut you off, but even to a bigger extent, just getting rid of Brian Ferentz, if we're going to count that too.
Yep, count that. Right? No, and I was actually going to say that too. Yeah. And so when you factor in all those things, it was a great offseason. Then, like you said, you mentioned like, yes, losing Jacob Bostic, that one stings a little bit, especially now, like knowing where he's going. You know, that means going to an SEC team, like that means he must have a lot of potential, and it sucks losing out on him. We also lost like Deontay Vines. We lost Brendan Diaz-Fernandez, but like those guys, I mean, I don't know. It wasn't like we're losing.
I would
out
say
on
if you're going to lose some guys, that's you might start there, right?
Yep. And then here's another thing too, and I guess you kind of pointed out, like besides Bostic, there's a lot of players that could have left. I mean, look at the running back room. Look at like Caleb Johnson. I'm sure he could have went to a bigger program where he could make a lot more money with his potential. Jaswin could have left. He went to a bigger program, but he could have went somewhere else because he's probably not going to play much. Think of like Caleb Brown. Like he could have left. I mean, I'm sure if he put his name in the transfer portal, there'd be a lot of schools wanting Caleb Brown. So being able to keep some of those guys as well, guys that could have left, in the portal, but then also guys that could have went off to the NFL, that was huge. And so when you're factoring all that, to me, it's an A- offseason. I don't think you can get much worse than that. But yes, if you're just talking getting Jacob Gill, getting Brendan Sullivan, getting the guy from North Dakota, the offensive lineman, although I do think he is actually going to be really good down the road, and then getting, Jackson Stratton or whatever his name is. Yeah. When you factor in just that, Brendan Sullivan was a nice get. Was he the best quarterback? No, but at the time he was the best fit for Iowa. So if you're just factoring that, definitely like a C+, B- ish. But when you factor in everything else, which you have to factor in, you can't just factor in, oh, who do we get in the portal? No, you got to factor in everything else. It's an A- for me. So, anything else on that?
No, I think you kind of hit it, the nail on the head. And that's something I didn't think of. Is like, it's not just about who you get; it's about who you retain in this new era of college football. That's just as important as who you get.
Yep, exactly. All right, I want to get to the next topic, which is Kadyn Proctor. I think it was on Tuesday he came out, or I shouldn't say he came out. An article came out where he discussed his transfer to Iowa and how it was just a bad mistake. And the headline read something like, probably one of the worst decisions I've made. And I don't think he like meant to come off like Iowa was just like a shitty place, but like the headline kind of made it seem like that. And so you had a lot of people kind of chirping about that. I will say though, I do feel like in a way, Kadyn is kind of playing the victim. And I would love to hear Iowa's side of the story as well, because this is like the second or third article I've read where like he goes off on like all these reasons like why he like didn't like Iowa. Like this last one was like, the tutor situation, then like a problem with like the personal trainer. I don't know. And who knows, maybe it is true. I'm not, maybe he is 100% accurate, but I just think it just kind of annoys me because I feel like he's sitting there just trying to blame everything instead of just coming out and be like, yeah, I made a bad mistake. My heart was still in Tuscaloosa. I should have never left. I made a dumb mistake. And move on. And I think we'd all be like, okay, it still would suck. Like it still sucks. He's fucked us over twice, but excuse my language, but it's one of those things where if he just comes out and says that, like we just move on and everything's good. Like I'm tired of like, this is like I said, like the third time now I've seen like an article where he just makes it seem like Iowa is such a horrible place. And I just feel like there's no way it is. And the reason why I say that is not just because I'm an Iowa fan, but if it was such a horrible place and such a horrible program, then every single year you would see a flock of transfers leaving Iowa. And so far in this portal era, we have not seen many. Every year it's a few players. Meanwhile, a bunch of teams lose 20, 25 guys like that. So clearly Iowa's doing something right. Clearly the players are bought in. Clearly the players like being at Iowa, else they would leave. And so that's just kind of my 2 cents on this. Like I said, I want to like flush it down, move on, but it's getting a little bit annoying seeing this ever so often. And it's like, man, just why? Like, why do you have to like go out and say all these things about Iowa, you know?
Yeah, I feel like let bygones be bygones. You know, if you wanted to move on, which is your choice, let it be as simple as that, right? Like, why are we trying to point the finger? I don't know if he was getting a bunch of shit maybe from Iowa fans, and this is why it's coming out. I just find it weird. This happened like 2 months ago, and now all this stuff's coming out now.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. Like, just move on from it. I think this is what happened. I could be completely wrong on this. I just think he came to Iowa thinking that everybody was going to bow down to him and everybody was going to like quote unquote worship him because he was like a 5-star. Yep. He was a savior. He just played in the college football playoff. He started as a freshman in all games. He was a #1 transfer portal player, or #2. I think he was #2 portal player. And I think for Iowa, and this isn't a bad thing, this is where Iowa gets its culture, is you have to earn it. You can't just come in thinking that you are the guy. Like, you have to earn your respect and you have to earn it. I think you look at like Cade McNamara for a second. He came in, and I'm sure, well, we know, like Joe Evans has even said, like, they didn't really like him right away, right? Because they probably thought, oh, okay, this guy's going to come in thinking he's the guy. He just played at Michigan in the college football playoff. But no, Cade, you know, as a good leader, he came in and he earned his player or his teammates' respect. And now, like, everybody loves Cade, right? Inside the football program. So that's what Kadyn, and I just feel like, so he came to Iowa. He thought that was going to happen. He didn't get that treatment at all. The offensive line probably didn't give him very good treatment because, once again, like, they know how he fucked them over the first time around. And then he goes off to spring break, has some time with his former teammates at Alabama, and just realizes, like, yeah, like, I should have never left. Like, that was a bad mistake. And he leaves and goes off to Alabama. So I think that's what happened. I don't think there was really much more than that to the story.
Yeah. Well, and another thing was, like, just he had some, like, he thought the language in his NIL money was weird. I think a lot of it has to do with maybe he didn't get as much money up front as what he maybe anticipated either. And he's like, what the heck's going on? Because I just feel like in today's day and age, money plays a big part in all this. Yeah, I really do.
Yeah, that 100% could be the reason too. I mean, there was obviously a motive behind of like why you would leave, but that's also the landscape of college football now, right? We're like, it's good. This isn't going to be the last time this happens where a player,
not the first or the last.
Where a player goes somewhere and then like a month later leaves. This was just a bizarre thing for Iowa because it just never happens. It was a day before spring ball started. That was another weird thing too. I was literally recording an episode talking about spring ball, and then I get a text saying that he's leaving, and just very bizarre. All right, let's end the show. 2 mailbag questions. We'll make this short and sweet. The first one is by Brian Saunders. He says, even if Cade starts, how about a 2 quarterback look at times during the game? What are your thoughts on that?
So I guess for me, I like the idea of utilizing 2 quarterbacks. I think it gives a defense something else to prepare for. It's not as predictable when you just have one guy, especially if a guy like Brennan, I'm assuming he's talking about Brennan Sullivan, maybe he's a little more athletic, can run the ball. Obviously, he can still throw the ball, do a couple of things maybe Cade can't. So if there's a package of plays for him like that out there, I like that idea. I don't see it happening, knowing what Kirk likes to do. And number 2, personally, I would not do this knowing Cade's injury history. We need a viable backup in there if and when Cade goes down. Yeah. If you put 2 guys out there constantly, that just increases the risk of both of them getting hurt.
I've really never been a huge fan of 2 quarterback systems, mainly just because I feel like you can never really get in a rhythm. It's very inconsistent. Yeah. And you know, like if you do passing plays with both quarterbacks, it's different, you know, throwing to, you know, the wide receivers, it feels different. And I just feel like nothing really meshes when you have two quarterbacks going in and out. I just feel like you got to pick one and you got to go with that guy and go until, hopefully he can go the entire year. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt, or hopefully he's good enough to play. If it obviously starts stucking, then yeah, you bring in the backup, something that we did not do at all the last how many years with Petrus and Deacon. But that, for me, that's where I'm at. Now, if, like you just said, if it was mainly like, okay, you bring in Sullivan for just a few like running plays because he is a little bit better of a runner than Cade, then like, I guess I'm not against that. I feel like, though, if you do those packages, you have to throw out of it ever so often because defenses are just going to know, like, if you see Brendan Sullivan trotting out there, they're going to know, okay, this is a run play. That's all you do with it. So I guess, like, if it happens ever so often where, he comes in, they do like a read option, right? But then, yes, add a wrinkle into it to make the defense honest, to keep them on their heels a little bit, then I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But if you're doing it all the time, like one quarter quarterback and then the next quarter it's a new quarterback, or
the other
couple of drives, I don't know.
The other thing with that is I feel like if teams are doing that, kind of like back when Cade was at Michigan and they were doing it with JJ, it's because they don't know exactly who they want to start, right? And
they did a good. I liked how Jim Harbaugh did that. He had one play one game, and then the next guy played the next game, and it was kind of like, okay, whoever does better is going to be the guy. Week
not
3.
Just for a drive. It's you get a whole game under your belt, whole game to get you in rhythm and whatnot. So
Here's another thing too: 2 quarterback system. The guy that's out there knows any little thing that I do. If I do something bad, I'm out. I'm out of the game, and that affects confidence at that point where it's like, okay, I have to be perfect, else the other guy's going to come in. And then if that other guy comes in, then same thing. Like, I have to be perfect, else they're going to bring in the other guy. So that's another thing I don't really like about 2 quarterback systems. I know a couple years ago, or no, it was 2014. I forgot what year it was. Iowa tried it for a little bit. It just didn't work. It's like, just stick with the guy and go from there. Okay. And then Doug Thomas has, and this is women's basketball and mainly all football in this one, so we'll keep this one short and sweet. Will the women's basketball team nosedive without Clark?
Nosedive's a big word. I mean, I take that as if you're bottom of the barrel in terms of the type of program you are. I don't know. I don't believe that. I think, I don't know if we've talked about it on this podcast. Obviously, Jan Jensen's now the head coach of the women's team, and I think she was involved in recruiting as much as Lisa was, if not more, right along with all those top players that, including Caitlin Clark, that came to Iowa. So I think she'll be able to kind of weather this little bump in the road of obviously Caitlin not being there anymore. And like, no, will it ever look the same? No, never. Like, Caitlin Clark's a generational player. She might be the best college basketball player, women's college basketball player we've ever seen. Probably for sure in my lifetime. Yeah. I doubt I see anyone better. So no, is it going to be the same? Are we going to go back to back national championship appearances? Probably not. But a lot of the high recruits have stayed, and as long as you can continue to recruit well, you obviously have a chance.
I think we're an NCAA tournament team next year. I don't know how far we will go, but I think with the addition of Lucy Olson, you bring back Hannah Stolke, Sydney, right? And you have some pieces. You're bringing in a great class, and then next year you're bringing in an even better class. No, I don't think this program is going to nosedive. I feel like using that word nosedive, like you said, it makes it seem like it's like going to be horrible.
Cliff, like
it's
quick
definitely
and abrupt.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's definitely not going to be as good, and it's definitely not going to get the coverage like it has been with Caitlin Clark.
Oh, for sure.
But it's still going to be a decent program. It's been a decent program. You go back to 2019, we made the Elite Eight, or I think we made the Elite Eight that year. We won some, Big Ten championships before Clark. Like, that's kind of where we're going to get back to, like, just a decent team, like not nothing like we've seen, but it's not going to be bad either. Especially, like I said, bringing in Lucy Olson was huge because that's a very good buffer for the time being. Just bringing a girl that, averages 20-ish points. Now, who knows if she'll do that in the Big Ten, but she's a good scorer. So you bring that in, you have some pieces around her. Yeah. I think it's still going to be a pretty good team, and it's going to be a fun team to watch. So, all right, well, we will end it there. Short and sweet and to the point. We'll probably do an episode Man, it's tough. I mean, with the offseason, it's tough to kind of judge when we're going to do another one, but probably more towards the end of June, we'll probably have another one out, and then we'll probably have a few more out in July, and then we are back to it. It is approaching really fast. I know we're recording this on Sunday. Yesterday, we were 12 weeks out from the first Iowa game. We're 11 weeks out from just college football in general. We're like 7-ish weeks out from Big Ten Media Days and like fall camp starting. So it is coming very, very quickly. We always joke about the summer, and it always seems like it flies by. And before we know it, we are back inside Kinnick Stadium. So it's going to be here. And like I said, even like August 1st, when we do our official episode to kick off the new season, and that is quickly approaching as well. And I feel like when that comes, just like last year when we started, like in like the end of July, it went by so quickly. And I was like, wow, we're already at the first week of the game. So, but yeah, we will end it there. Thank you guys all for listening. Until then, have a good rest of your week, and go Hawks.